Hello and welcome to the North America Gaelic Football Podcast, the home of Gaelic football here in North America. I am your host, Gareth McAlinden. Before we get started, just a quick shout out to our sponsors, Masita, who have been the official sponsor of the USGAA since 2017. For anybody who doesn't know who Masita is, they're one of Ireland's leading manufacturers of sports kits and teamwear. They are a 100% Irish-owned family business who are passionate and dedicated to supplying their customers with quality gear and top-class service. So if your club is interested in learning more about Masita's teamwear, please feel free to send us a direct message and we'll be happy to direct you into the right person and help you in your club with your needs in the upcoming season. Today, got two very special guests. We have John Young and Rob Tierney. A little bit, John's the chairperson of the Midwest Division of the USGAA, and Rob is the secretary of the Midwest Division in the USGAA and is also the Games Development Officer for the USGAA as a whole. So, without further ado, lads, welcome. Appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy schedule. And what's the crack with you?
Not too much, hey. Thanks a lot for having us on. I did want to say before we get started, behalf of the Midwest clubs, I think you have an exciting and interesting concept here with this podcast. I'm surprised nobody has done it so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing where you go with it. I think it'll be very informative for our clubs, and like I said, the best of luck and success to yourself and Connor with it.
Appreciate it, John. So, why don't we just get straight into the questions? Because I know with the two of you lads, we're gonna have a lot of content here. So why don't we start with John? John, just walk us through a little bit of your journey. Gaelic football, personal. How you arrived in Pittsburgh, and just kind of your journey. So why don't you kick us off?
Yeah. So there's always a story behind everything that you do. So. I think it'd be interesting to know. I was actually hurling would have been my first sport whenever I was at home there at Ballyvarley hurling club just outside of Banbridge there. I mean, look, I left Ireland whenever I was 17, so it was all underage stuff. Bit of football at St. Patrick's there in Banbridge. Like I said, the football club then would have been Tullyleash. So I moved to the US 1991. I came over as part of a program that was sort of for disadvantaged youth, sort of stuff that was going on with the Troubles and whatnot. It was a program through the Ireland Institute of Pittsburgh and youth training program there in the north, in Tierney. I said, ever since that, it's just been great. The GAA in Pittsburgh was very welcoming. It's a great place to be, and the resources they provided for me ever since that has been phenomenal. Like in regards to, work, housing, all of that stuff, it's just been absolutely superb. Yeah, so at that time, there was a couple of football teams in Pittsburgh. It was Colm Kills, and that's who I went to play for, and then there was also the Celtics. So after, maybe being here about 8 or 9 years, the Colm Kills had disbanded, and the Celtics were the only game in town, and that's where we all went to play for. And things, we weren't the greatest team at that time, now, to be honest with you. But we were a great team in regards to clubmanship, and then we went from there, and success started happening. And then the problem was I started to age out, Gareth. The legs started to give up. So the good thing with the GAA is there's a place for everybody, and I found administration of the GAA was something that I really, really enjoyed. So I was club secretary, club chair. I was involved with the Pittsburgh Banshees football team, and went on to be the Midwest chair. From there, the administrators were involved on the USGAA County Board, and now I'm back to chair of the Midwest.
So how's that, how does that roll? What's your kind of day-to-day duties for that? Because, you guys have many clubs in your divisions, and you guys are a really big division as well. You guys go from, I think on last week's episode we were talking about Bernie, you guys go as far as down as Cleveland, the whole way up to almost upstate New York. That's a big division. So, what's kind of your day-to-day look like with that?
Yeah, geographically, so we definitely have some challenges there. There's no doubt about it. But look, we figure out how to make it work. So we do go, we do cover the state of New York, except for New York City itself. We cover Ohio. We cover Michigan. We cover then the Pittsburgh side of Pennsylvania. We separate our division into different groups so that we have lesser traveling distances. So the maximum probably you travel for a game would be about 6 hours. The least you travel for a game would be 3 hours. So to us, that sounds short. I know yourself up there in the Northeast Division. That probably sounds long enough.
Oh, yeah. And Rob, I see you in the background there. We don't want to leave you out too. So Rob, just tell us a little bit about yourself as well. Just where you're from at home, club and stuff growing up, and what's your background for being here in the US?
Yeah, no problem, Garrett. So when I was growing up, I would have played a little bit for Luke and Sarsfields there in West Dublin. They would have been my club, and I suppose in my middle teens, like a lot of people, I would have drifted away from Gaelic and maybe towards the foreign sport, And I came to the States in 2001. I came to Pittsburgh, and I knew one guy here when I came here. Thankfully, it wasn't John, or I probably never would have come here, right? But I knew one guy, and shortly after St. Patrick's Day, he said, "Hey, look, the team are getting ready to train next weekend. Will you come down?" And I thought, geez, I haven't played this game in years. I think it's kind of passed me by. And he said, come on down. So look, you go home that weekend, you have a bit of soul searching. And I decided, why not? I know one guy here. What's the worst that happens? I meet somebody else. So you go down to training, and suddenly, you find 20 people that love Ireland. They love going out. They love sport. And of course, they love the GAA. And I'd heard about the power of the GAA but I really didn't appreciate it until suddenly it was me that was deeply affected by it. So I went from knowing one guy to 21, and it kind of mushrooms out from there. It's a fantastic kind of landing spot for folks. I run visa program during my day-to-day job here. A lot of the summer work travel students that you might meet around Boston for the summer might be on our program. It's definitely one of the things that now I tell them, find your GAA club. That's where you're going to find your feet. That's kind of how I ended up finding the GAA again, I suppose, in later years.
Yeah, and the Gaelic community, not just the Gaelic community, but the Irish community as a whole here in the US, whether you're in, Boston, Portland, Maine, New York City, Pittsburgh, the Irish are everywhere. Right. And that's kind of the first thing you do look up is the Gaelic team. But, it's such a, it's almost got that rugby kind of feel, where it's that community aspect. You travel as a team, you play as a team, you go out as a team. It's that camaraderie that, it's almost like people are searching for all the time, especially as Irish people. We're always looking for that, Yeah,
and I think what I found about the GAA is that you're included in until you decide you want to leave. So you show up, if you're particularly, obviously here in Pittsburgh, we're mostly American-born players. And when they show up and they find this group of guys, or indeed the ladies, when they show up, be it for the Nalekra Camogie or Pittsburgh Banshees ladies football team, you're in the circle. It's up to you to decide this sport really isn't for me. And it's fantastic from that point of view. People are very welcoming, very open. This is a new sport to a lot of them. It's a new sport to a lot of our players. And I think they share that immediately, particularly if they're not, somebody who's kind of off the boat like John or myself. So it's just fantastic landing ground.
And that's the thing too. Like, it does provide the not only the immigrant coming in, but the home base non-Irish player that's playing with the club. To walk into something that has that much meat in it in regards to the foundation of, everything that you need, like the social circle, the jobs, the housing. It's just such a great resource, and I think that's something that GA can be credited with across the world.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point there, where that networking aspect, right? So you're networking with a bunch of people, and let's just say you're new into an area and you're looking for a job. More than likely they're going to know somebody who's going to get you on to somebody, that's one thing that, stood by me for years as, playing with the McInnesby's in Boston. If you ever needed a job, if you're out here, hey, listen, we'll get you in somewhere, we'll get you in laboring with somebody, or we'll get you into the bars, it's an incredible community of people that are willing to help you, that are willing to actually go out of your way to help you, to make sure you succeed here. And it's got that feeling of home, because I think we're all kind of searching for that as well, right?
Yeah.
But it's also unique too, because how many times, like, look at myself and Connor, you know, a lad from Newry and a lad from Limerick has started a podcast. Like, you're not going to get that in Newry or Limerick. But, you know, you got a people from all, and look at yourself, you know, Robert from Dublin and John from Down. Like, you have people. Right. Now when I go home, like, you know, throughout the last 8 to 9 years, I've played with lads from Kerry, from Cork, from, you know, the Galway to Dublin. You know, if I'm ever in Dublin, you know, you bump into lads that you played football with 5-6 years ago. You know, it's definitely very unique.
No, that's the greatest thing about it too. Like, you could be traveling anywhere too across the world, and the first thing you do is look for the GAA club for to have a resource into wherever you're going. You know what I mean, for whatever you need. You know, like so, it definitely what it brings to the table is something that I don't know that any other sport does, because a lot of other sports are sports related, and I try and tell people, look, the GAA is 65% resource and 35% sport. You know what I mean? The sport's an important part of it, but what it brings as a resource is just unreal. Like, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, Rob, just touch a little bit more about you. So your current position is the secretary at the Midwest, but you have a bunch of other roles as well, correct?
Yeah, I think John and myself and so many more, you give a busy man work to do, right? And the job gets done. I suppose that's how we've always operated. John and myself have been on the local board together, on the Midwest board. We made it to the national board one time as well. So, yeah, look, I think we make time for this. I was listening to your Bernie Connaughton one, and you were laughing about the full-time job. And Bernie was saying, like, this is the full-time job. You kind of have to park your other job a lot of the time. And that's kind of what we do. You know, we're both involved in the youth here locally as well. So really across the full gamut, I suppose we are involved in the organisation. Yeah,
the wife likes to say there's 3 of us in this marriage: me, you, and the GAA.
Guy, you don't have to tell my wife that.
I suppose we should probably say as well, Gareth, John's my brother-in-law, so he did us the favour of taking my sister off her hands, Marie. So we're grateful for that. I think
congratulations or commiserations.
Commiserations. John and I have known each other since probably 2001, and he's been married to Marie maybe since 2004. Like, for John and I, like, we should be in divorce terms at this point, GAA speaking. There's a lot of brothers-in-law that have fallen out in this game, but I suppose we've managed to kind of hang in there and support each other, yeah.
Yeah, and we definitely thrive off each other, Gareth. Like, I mean, like I said, everything we've done it together at the club level, Midwest level. I'm kind of one of the ones who have the wacky, you know, ideas. You mean the craziness, and Robbie's the one who brings you back to earth and actually brings something that's a crazy idea and makes it a good idea and administers it first. Like, you know, like even there, we were talking about the Midwest and what we're doing. Whenever we sat the Midwest board back in 2013 to 2016 as well together, and at that time there was 11 clubs in the Midwest. Here we are 10 years later, and we're expecting to have 25 clubs this year. The growth's unreal, and look, there's many reasons for that. And we also, like Robbie said, we got onto the national board, and we were working there at the national level as well. We worked under chairs like Gareth Fitzsimons there for a couple of years, and Bernie Connaughton for 3 years. And the growth level across this country is unreal. Like, those 2 chairs have invested a lot of time with the games development and getting Robbie in there in that position and throwing national resources at it. That the growth rate across this country is unbelievable. Like, I'd say, I don't know, Robbie, you probably know more like what the numbers are, but we have 35, 40 new clubs just in the last 4 to 5 years, probably.
Yeah, we're at about 30 over the last 5 years, which of course included the 1 year of COVID. So, like, when you parse that out, that's massive growth, really, and they're continuing. Obviously, the great story, suppose, or the interesting one is obviously the Los Patriots. From Mexico City coming on board, but there's a lot of other clubs that are joining the organization. They'll continue.
I love that.
That's fantastic.
We actually touched base on that a little last week with Bernie, and you know, I think we're all in favor on like a January tournament. You know, Cancun, you know,
even a convention would work there as well. Like, you know, I'd say you get big attendance.
Oh, it'd be brilliant. Head down to all-inclusive resort for a weekend. You know, Yeah, but so let's before we move on, because I actually want to follow up on that, you know, more about, you know, the growth of not just Midwest, but, you know, your own respected clubs there as well. But before we move on, one of our kind of staple questions is if your lads were explain Gaelic football to somebody that you met in the streets of Pittsburgh, how would you explain it to them?
I suppose it falls in maybe to the old answer of your basketball meets rugby meets some volleyball. That's your opening line, and then you try and challenge them, I suppose, and see if they, what games they have played before. And obviously, after college finishes here, there's a big dropout, so you're trying to kind of reel them in the whole time. John, what would you say?
I'd say 90% crack, 10% sport. just we'll get you sucked in, and then we'll teach you some football,
Oh Jesus! Came for the ball, left with a crack. So,
yeah.
So
good teacher.
You were asking us there too, a bit about Pittsburgh. Whenever I first come out here, Gareth, we could barely kick snow off a rope. You know what I mean? We were doing our best, but things have evolved so much, too, in the resources, not only from the USGAA but from Croke Park and from coaching and management. Our club now, I couldn't even. I don't even know if I could be the water boy in the team anymore. They're so elite, you know what I mean, in regards to training regimes and schedules, and the work and the effort that they put in is just absolutely unreal.
Yeah, no, and it's actually a good place to kind of move into that next section of the podcast where we want to talk about the rise of Pittsburgh Celtics, John, your club. So yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the history of the club and where you guys, how you've got to where you've been today, because you kind of talk about that elite status of the Pittsburgh Celtics now. But most likely it wasn't always like that. And that's the same with a lot of clubs. They start off small and they grow into these big clubs. So I'd love to hear a bit more about the history and where you guys how you got into the place you are today.
So in 1976, right? So a few years ago, there was the Roger Casements were here, and they had won national championship, very elite team as well. Then the younger players that were coming up weren't getting playing time, right? So that created a need for a new team or a new club or whatever. And Howard Albert and Tommy Clunan put together the Pittsburgh Celtics to give these younger, maybe second generation Irish, a chance and a place to play. And that's where they went on to play. And now, over the years, like I said, we've evolved from, fairly average team into a decent high-level junior team. There's many reasons for that. And I try and tell people this here all the time, because they talk about bringing players in, right? That's always a big topic, right? I think that our club has reached the fine formula in that. So we would bring in 3 or 4 a year. We have probably 30 to 35 young American lads that would be out to play. And then we bring in, maximum of 5, say, right? And we round out at 40 players there on the team. And what that does, right, it brings all of those players up. Because, first of all, they want to be better than the Irish fella that you brought in, right, for the help play. So, they come in, they start being coaches, they start bringing these players to a different level. And now, our Americans are playing at such a good level. We've had different players over the years. We've had John Tierney that played for Calvin, with John Slattery that Captain Wexford, Ryan McAleenan that played for Down. Colin McKeever, actually current life player, and you see how well they're doing. He was here in Pittsburgh as well. And like I said, bringing over those quality of players and letting them play with the newer players where it's not their first sport is actually really doing a good job, and it gives a good place to be. There's a way to overdo it, and I think that we haven't done that yet. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, so I think it was 76 when we started, and if I'm right, we didn't make the first North American playoffs until 1999. John, was that it?
Yes.
Yeah. And so we went
in Boston there too.
Yeah, in Boston. Yeah. So we went 23 years without making it, and it's kind of interesting in the modern world where people are looking for that immediate reward. That we were able to keep a group of players together, coaches together, for 23 years without getting to, I suppose, what the big game was. Probably some of our turning point came in early 2000s, just some key decisions and some people that kind of came, whether, they just happened to come into Pittsburgh, and we just got this rich crop of people that arrived, but also the younger players that were starting to come through here as well. And just things clicked. And in the early 2000s, then we went on to win our first Midwest Championship, which was fantastic. After all those years of toil, like we've had a very, very lucky run over the last number of years. Our current players don't know a lot about losing within our division. But, you know, when John came, those players certainly knew all about losing it. They won games here and there.
Yeah. And on the football end of things, like at that time, like whenever I was playing with the Celtics at the very start, you only had Cleveland, St. Pat's, you had Cleveland, St. Jarlath's, you had Detroit, Park Pearson, the Detroit Wolf Tones, and like nobody could touch the Cleveland, St. Jarlath's. I mean, they were an unstoppable force. And like I said, in the circle to happen over the 20 years that we would be considered the force in the division now, it actually feels good, like, you know.
Well, you are actually in a similar boat to the Northeast as well, where you actually have to qualify out of your division to get to the Nationals. You know, and that's not the same in every division. We were actually talking this with Bernie last week, where some, you know, out of no fault of their own, just because there's no, you know, they're so far apart. Yeah, the geography, where, you know, we're kind of like the Midwest and the Northeastern are a very unique division, where very competitive leagues. That's actually very hard to get the Nationals. You know, in our, you know, now we have senior, intermediate, junior A, junior B, junior C. You know, and you got to get out of, you know, and each division within that has probably 4 or 5 teams and strong teams.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's kind of a testament. Any team that does get out there, it's, you know, it's earned. You know, that is earned every year. And when you get there, you want to get back every year. You want to get, like, you know, we got there with the hurling, and we were lucky enough to get there with the football. But that's a memorable weekend that these boys will remember for the rest of their lives. You know, the crack is just 90. You know, but then the level of games, and they see like that camaraderie again. It gets back to that community base, right? So, you know, talking about that kind of challenge aspect, you know, what's some of the biggest challenges you have faced, especially through the last couple of years, you know, with COVID? I know a lot of clubs definitely did hurt. Some thrived. So maybe talk about some of the challenges you've faced throughout the years.
Yeah, I'd say, like, and just touch base back there real quick on what you were talking about up there in the Northeast Division. Like, that's unreal too. Like, what's happening now and all the different levels that you're getting there. There's a very good growth. And, you know, a lot of people talk about, like, say, like, for example, like living in Pittsburgh, right? It's very hard to do a team because you're in a small Irish market or whatever. The first thing I tell people is, hey, try and put 25 to 30 clubs in one city, whether there's a big Irish population or not, to try to actually keep those clubs alive. I think it's a huge accomplishment on its own. So there's multiple ways of looking about small Irish markets versus large Irish markets and the amount of teams and whatnot. And like I said, when you were also talking about the qualification process to get out of the division. So yes, as a junior division, we are doing that now as well. So that started for us, like heavily started for us about 10 years ago. And we put that together, guys, because we thought it was very important to have meaningful games, right? So we found that people were starting their season and their whole budget was applied to traveling wherever the USGAA finals were, the NACB finals, whatever it was called at the time, like, you know. And they had no interest in what was happening in their regular season in their division. So we totally changed that around and said, look, the only way to actually give you meaningful games here in the division is to actually make them mean something. The clubs were a little bit hedgy at the start in regards to that, but after the first year of us doing that, the clubs came to us and said, look, that's the best thing we've ever done. We can't wait to do this again. And we can touch on it a little bit later in the thing, but we went on to create a league, a Midwest Championship weekend, and you qualify forward. Our selling point was, look, if you're going to go and represent our division, you may as well be the best in the division moving forward, and you'll have all of our support whenever you move on versus everybody just getting to go. Now,
everybody wants to go. Who doesn't want to go to nationals?
Listen, like you said, the crack is just unreal. Like, I mean, it's once you've been there, you can't wait to get back.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's a lot of expense involved in going, and you have to get your house in order first locally, and then you're ready to go on to there. You know, what do you think, Rob?
Yeah, like, I mean, we just actually got on a call with the Midwest. We had our monthly board meeting there, and we kind of have confirmed our schedule for the year, and we're upwards of 48 competitive, meaningful games, right? John mentioned the word meaningful. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely the buzzword, particularly in terms of development. It's all very well playing games. Are they meaningful? Are they counting for something? So with 48 games, almost 50 games to be played, it's a very, very robust season that we have ahead. And every game means something. You know, whether you're the Pittsburgh Pukas, whether you're playing with Akron Hurling, or you're up in the Fianna playing football in Buffalo, every game is going to count. And that's really what's important. It's going to determine some of the seeding for the championship weekend that we have the second week of August. And then it's from that our teams will emerge then to move forward within the various grades. So yeah, it's kind of really helped things here to have that meaningful level added.
And guys, like what we did too, right, was so we have our league and then we have our championship. Our championship's over a 2-day event over the weekend because we wanted to give that end of the year festival type environment that you get at the North American finals, so that it feels like you accomplished something at the end of the year. You achieved a big event. You got to play in it. And if you get to progress, then you're the best team in the division to move forward. But if your season's in there, you end it with, a bang, like,
Yeah, and that's actually, you brought up a good point there, like ending with a 2-day event, because when you go to nationals, right, you're used to playing one game on a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You go to nationals, if your body's not used to playing 2 games in a weekend, by the time, we had a game on the Friday, and then we had a game on the Saturday. We had a final on the Sunday against North Carolina. And I can tell you, our bodies were done, and that was Junior Sela. We're no athletes in that. Little part-timers, like. But even the athletic American kids were even feeling it. And the Saturday was that rainy, soggy day, and the legs were just tired. It was heavy, So that's almost like a good idea to do it that way, where you have that 2 days, so you're kind of getting a little bit of that, then your muscle memory comes back, right? Yeah. So when you're at nationals, you have that little bit of experience to know, all right, what my body's going to expect. So that's a great point there. I actually like that setup. Are you guys the only ones that do that setup, or is there other divisions that do that too?
So, obviously, look, you have all your senior divisions, that are doing that. And I think the Mid-Atlantic is doing it a little bit. The Southeast is doing it a little bit. Look, here's the thing, is like we're not all the same, right? So the one approach doesn't fit for everybody, because we have, like, while we have a geography, we're starting to get enough teams in each grade to where they're getting close enough to play. But you have different divisions where you might only have 2 teams and they're far apart, and they're not getting the games that they need all year. They almost need to go to the USGAA finals to get games, Yeah. So like I said, there isn't one approach that fits across the country, for it, and it's not fair to demand the same thing of everybody, because what all the different divisions are dealing with throughout the year is a factor in how they end their year, I guess you would call it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, probably a good point, time to talk about, these North Americans and memories. I want to talk about maybe some of the memories that you've had throughout the years, some of the most memorable moments of, your time in the GAA. So, John, you want to kick us off with some of them, maybe with the club or, even with the GAA in general?
Yeah, so I have one that lives in the head forever. Now, with what is it? Probably 15 or 20 years on since it actually happened, so it's been well glorified in my memory. But so the first time that we ever in Pittsburgh got to qualify to go to the North American NACB finals at that time, we played the Detroit Park Piercers in the semi-final. After the game was over, 27-27, no goals. It was just a straight-out point-shooting competition. Into overtime, we won by 2 points. And sure, your man you're talking to right here scored the final 2 points to get us there. So like I said, that's my memory. And listen, I remember looking around the field at the players that I was playing with, and us all just lying on the ground exhausted, but so happy that we had the opportunity in 1989 to go to the North American finals up in Boston. It was an all-real moment. It's something that stuck in my head. Like I said, I'm sure it's well glorified since it actually happened, but it's in the bank.
What about yourself, Rob?
Mine's probably an off-the-field one. Standing in the wavering in the Canal Court up in Uri, watching the night porter bringing 25 pints of Guinness to our players at 4:30 in the morning on a trip to Ireland. That was just an unbelievable sight to see. It was the easy order for my man, so just 25 pints and that was it. We brought the team over to Ireland a number of years ago, We played up in Tullylish outside Banbridge, and also in the St. Jude's Junior Sevens. Got to tour Croke Park, got to meet Aegon O'Farrell, the Uachtaráin at the time, Sky Tour Croke Park with like largely American players, like American lads. And for many, it was the first time outside of America, first time needing a passport. It was the time of those cheap WOW flights. So we were able to find one for like $350. It got everybody back. And it was an incredible week. John will talk there about Jamie Morgan and Big Joe up in Armagh. John, if you want to maybe talk about that, leading us on Mary
John's track, and like we went onto the field, and like the rain was just teeming down, and the groundskeeper there come out onto the Crossbegan field and said, Joe, no, there's no way that you're getting on the field tonight. And he said, look, I have about 40 of my friends here from America. We're taking the field. And took us out, put us through a training session. More importantly, though, afterwards, he took us around and he made sure he hit every single pub in Crossbegan. So now, it was strategic on his end, but we were just having the greatest crack ever. He made sure every pub got a turn while we were in town. So they said that was a great trip.
I think another kind of funny one, actually, the story with Joe kind of came full circle on the Friday, because on the Wednesday night, he'd be regaling different groups that he'd be sitting with in each of the pubs with stories. And he talked about how in the All-Ireland final at half-time, he brought his players in and he got his loser's medal and he threw it against the wall in the shower. And he said that wasn't worth a damn, right, to try and give Armagh the motivation to go out there and overturn things and win the All-Ireland, which obviously they did. So fast forward onto the Friday and we do the tour of Croke Park and we're sitting down in the changing rooms and the girl starts to tell the story and one of the lads says, we've already heard it. And it was just such a brilliant moment to bring those lads home. And I've heard a legend like Joe Kernan tell the story and then for it to be relayed and almost not relayed in Croke Park itself. It was terrific.
Yeah, my household, Joe Kernan would be a god. Unfortunately, not in my eyes. So I'm in all my family. So my mother, my father, my two brothers, all Armagh.
Right.
I'm the black sheep in the family.
Yeah,
I'm the down one, So
on you, boy.
Yeah, just sticking to the guns. I was my club was in Down. That was it. Like through youth playing with Down, so I kind of had more like a connection there with Down, where my family were more Armagh. 2002 was a depressing year, So whenever they won, and actually, I never forget. My parents actually pulled myself and my two brothers out of school to go to the parade in the Carrickdale to see them come home. And I was there with my Down jersey on, welcoming every one of them in.
Listen, that was dangerous territory if you had a Down jersey on the Sunday night.
Listen, I was 11 at the time, so they were probably just laughing at me, but I'm sure if I was a couple of years older, I probably would have got a slap or two, no. But, that was, 2002, that was a hell of a year. That was, look at the players on that 2002 team. McGeeney, you had Oshie McConville, Ronan Clark. That was just like the McEntees.
Oh, powerhouses,
just 100%. Absolute animals of men, and just fit. But sorry we could probably say that all day, I'm sure if my family are watching, they're probably like, they're loving that story, but I want to just kind of get back to the club. I love that idea of, getting the lads over there for a team bond in Ireland. So what do you kind of see the vision for the future, and how do you continue to move on for that? Because those are pretty big steps to follow with taking lads to Ireland, and where do you see the future?
Yeah, so one of the things I'd say, on the adult level, right? So we have generated a second team now, right? So because you have that elite level team and it's so hard to break through, it's not as an interesting place for a new player. So we find that we need to have that second team, playing the junior C, junior D level, so that we can bring in these new players and still, bring them through the system and try and make them better to make the first team. I might even consider putting on the boots again myself. They're touching 49. So my young fellas out playing this year, it's great to watch him. He's doing his best. He just can't wait to make a junior D team. Might be interesting to go on there and kick a few points with him somewhere throughout down the season if I still have a leg, like, you know.
Junior D is you can have two Irish born, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I'd have to go back and the regulations change so much every year. I mean, I have to go back and just double check. But like I said, we don't have an Irish-born problem here in Pittsburgh, you know. So those regulations never really matter too much to us because it's all sort of, you know, your American-borns that we have here. Like I said, so that's where I think on the adult level, like now, like on the I don't know, Robbie, you want to talk about the youth level a little bit and where that fits into the club's future?
Yeah, so we had a pretty vibrant youth club until COVID, and then COVID hit, and of course, you know, all bets were off that year. We tried to come back again, and it just didn't take off. We didn't have the same interest, so it's really something we need to go after again. The good thing, I suppose, is that some of those older players that had been playing on the youth club have now moved across, be it to the Celtics or to our Banshees Ladies Football Club. So that's great. So you can see automatically the pathway is there, and of course that itself is a key kind of phrase here in not just USGAA but across the GA. That player pathway, is there that opportunity to move from the youth across to the adult team? So it's definitely something that we need to do better at here in Pittsburgh. We're going to do our best to do it this summer and start that youth program back up, even if it's just baby steps. Get something going. I think that's what we absolutely need to do.
Yeah, I think like to put on top of that there, guys, sorry, that's the future in this country, like, you know, is to have this it all the way from childhood up through the adult level. Like that's where we have to get to here, you know. Listen, there's a place for the players coming in to play in the senior divisions. I couldn't enjoy the games more going and watching them, but in these sort of non-Irish markets, the future is definitely, and the way the sustainability is definitely to bring these kids up through the youth system and then get them through the youth system into the young adult system, into the adult teams. I mean, I think that's where sustainability is for a club if you're looking at a club long term here today, you know.
Well, yeah, talking about long term, you know, so let's just say somebody would be listening to this podcast and you're thinking, all right, you know, how do I get involved with, you know, Pittsburgh GAA or even Gaelic football? Maybe not even as a player. Maybe I just want to be part of that community that we talked about, that network of people. You know, maybe you're Irish American or you got a couple of friends or cousins in Ireland. You know, what would be the first steps to kind of get involved with yous?
I suppose things have already started this season, a couple of weeks, and some of the indoor stuff has already started. We've had a couple of new player nights. That's generally what we try and do every year is kick off the year early February. It's like it's a 12-month sport for us, even though, you know, it gets quite wintry here in Pittsburgh. But that will be the key. You get those new player nights. We've teamed up with a local organization here that has a lot of access to young professionals. We try and invite them along to play the sport and experience it. That's one of the biggest things that we do. There's always room for new board members if somebody's not a player, and of course they're welcomed. They're welcomed with open arms. Yeah. The more people to go around with help with some of these tasks, obviously, the better. So I suppose that's probably the main way we would do it.
Yeah, like listen, your power of social media too anymore is just if you can harness that power and get that to the right people. I mean, it's a great place to be, to make sure you're bringing in that person that's not knowledgeable about Gaelic games, but finds out maybe he's on a trip to Ireland and they come back and they start searching in social media, is there anything local? Then you get them out of the game and then they're hooked, you know?
It's that first. Just get them to one session.
That's what I was saying. Just get them there. I'll do the rest. Like, I mean, the game will do the rest. Like, no problem.
And it's funny. The retention rate has to be super high. For us anyway at Worcester Fenians, you know, any new lad that's come and tried it, you know, it costs them nothing. Come out, get a pair of cleats. You know, there's not much expected. Just have a bit of fun. You know, if you want to come and get a workout, great. If you want to learn a new sport, great. If you want to just join a group of people and a network of people, fantastic. So
one of our things every year is we've always had a bus trip. So we'll hire a 52-seater, load up with players on the way up, load up with beer on the way back. There's generally a couple of bottles of Buckfast get flown in for the occasion.
Buckfast.
Yeah,
that's a while.
it's become a bit of a thing on the bus trips to have the Buckfast initiation, which it's so funny to hear the new American lads who didn't know what the hell a Buckfast was 2 weeks earlier looking forward to this bus trip with Buckfast. When we brought the team over to Ireland, we wrote to Buckfast to see if they'd sponsor us. It was a no-go, unfortunately.
So there was wasn't there like I forget what the name of the team was. Was it a university?
There was a
team that was actually sponsored.
Yeah, I think the Buckfast on the front of the jerseys. Yeah.
Oh my god! And that jersey, and something like that is silly, as silly as that is in the same way.
And if you get them on that bus trip, in that bus trip, they're hooked.
Sure, people waiting for 12 months, like for hopping again,
Well, we'll not talk about the slogan here about Buckfast on this podcast. We'll keep that PG. But Jesus, those were the days. Good news though. We should have our the main man from Limerick jumping on now.
Very good.
He's a second half sort of lad, is he?
He's second half lad. That man is
going to bring it home.
He's not the starter. He's the finisher. But he'll be on now in a second. So apologies for anybody, expecting the Limerick man. So
I was only here for him. So okay, I'm glad he's here.
That and Yuri,
us down boys stick together,
that's it, But yeah, I mean, let's move on kind of like to the Midwest division, because I think there's a lot of talking points in that, because it is so like that is a big division. Where you guys go. So let's talk a little bit more about that Midwest division. How did it become formed, and how that has evolved over the past few years.
Yeah, and listen, I wouldn't be the greatest historian on it, because I'm relying on, and listen, it's been talked about over the years about this oral history project and stuff. There's so many people that have such a wealth of knowledge in this country, and we need to record that knowledge. So like I said, it is a USGAA thing to try to work on that. But my understanding is the Midwest would have been created back in like the early 80s, right? Whenever the county finals were originally formed by the NCB. And they were breaking it up into playing areas of where you would come from to play and stuff. So that's kind of like my understanding of it. Like the original teams that would have been involved in that would have been the Celtics, the Pittsburgh Roger Casement, the Cleveland St. Jarlaths, and the St. Pats. So like there's been a ton of growth since then. You getting there, Robbie, on that?
No, John, you're 100%. It was, I think, it was a factor of those maybe the first North American playoffs, and that's why they kind of divisionalized the county.
Yeah, it's funny, because the breakups of the divisions, I'm sure, that's something that needs to evolve, as time goes on and more clubs come into play and whatnot, so that they can create these different playing areas. And that's the USGAA board does a good job, and they're volunteers and they do so much work. And these are just things that they keep evolving on. Do you mean the amount of teams at the USGAA finals now? The USGAA board is literally there from 7 o'clock in the morning, if not 6:30, to maybe 9 or 10 o'clock at night, just to cater the administration in regards to the game. So, like I said, but the Midwest, we're very happy with it. We have to make trips sometimes. You could travel up to 13 hours per game if you want in the Midwest, but we have structured it properly that's not a necessity. And then, teams you may not have seen all year will come in, and then you'll get to compete against them in the Midwest final. So it creates new competition too at the end of the year whenever you're doing your qualification to get to the USGA finals.
Well, good. That's, I guess, some of the challenges there. But is there almost some opportunities there? For there's a big gap in there, right? So opportunity for growth in a lot of different areas, and expanding those clubs as well. I know, John, we kind of touched base a little bit about, you guys talked about a north and south kind of division. So how does that kind of work on your end?
Yeah, so that's what we have at the minute. We have it structured so we have the southern teams all playing together. We have the northern teams all playing together. And like I said, that way they're probably I don't know, maybe 4.5 hour maximum. 5 hours is definitely at the very maximum for to get a game. They're playing in their own leagues. And like I said, then they'll come out of their leagues, come into the Midwest Championship. So like I said, it's doable. We're used to that, Gareth. It's normal,
And it's a weekend away.
It's a weekend away.
Let's get to the real stuff. Yeah. Any excuse for a weekend away, like,
Yeah,
Well,
and
we
like
do
the
lots
other
of
thing too
travel.
that like with we look at the division, like particularly from the divisional board, right? We'll look at it, and I know like there in the past, like for example, whenever we were looking at like Buffalo up north, Pittsburgh down south, Cleveland sort of maybe slightly over to the west. We're like there's a middle spot there of area. So we tried to like identify people in the area to see could we help them start a team, and I mean that's stuff that we're ever evolving on. We try to find midpoints where if there was another team in that area, like it would be of great benefit. So like I said, those are the things that keep you creative.
Yeah, we definitely have a number of opportunities within the division area. Newcastle, not too far from Pittsburgh and kind of heading towards Akron. New club, even John contacted us right from Grand Rapids, which is above Detroit in Michigan. So there's definitely, there's definitely opportunities for growth. I mean, throughout the county, but within our division for sure as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and like our growth too, Gareth, what's happening at the minute, right, is in like the ladies football, the camogie, and hurling. Like our men's football is kind of nicely where it's at, but like since that, like our ladies football, that has exploded. Our hurling has exploded. On our camogie, we just started that last year, and we have 2 teams, and we're looking at bringing 2 more, or 2 clubs, and we're looking at bringing in 2 more clubs. So, like I said, it's the growth is just right for some reason at the minute. It's just happening,
Yeah, we actually touched base a little bit about that last week with Bernie, how hurling clubs has really exploded, and ladies football and camogie. At the last Nationals, he was saying there was, at the one in Boston, there was almost more hurling games than there was football for probably the first time ever.
Yeah,
and that's going to continue
in Chicago,
to go.
Yeah, it happened in Chicago this year.
Yeah,
what was it, like 52% hurling to 48% football or something? Which, listen, those numbers are astonishing. If you've been going to conventions and stuff, and look, that's where we need to go, because that's our one time a year to get updated and to have your voice and stuff. Like, clubs need to attend conventions. They don't realize like kind of how important that is, because you get the information, updates in regards to what's happening around the country and stuff like what you just said there. With there being more hurling than football games played at the USGAA finals.
Look at that handsome devil. Look at that handsome lad. Huh?
Anyways,
well, what about you? How are you doing?
Hey, Rob. Hey, John. How are we doing?
I feel like I should interview you here.
Yeah, I know. Huh? So we're all worried about you there for a bit, Connor. So
yeah. That was good. No,
I don't know if you've seen that. We touched base a little bit earlier about Nafina. If you see that beautiful little checkered shirt there behind him. The Buffalo team.
That's a Midwest club there. That's what Gareth and I were talking about earlier on. It's good to see a Midwest club up there in the background.
Now, Detroit, are they Midwest too?
Yes, Detroit is also, yeah.
They're up there as well, yeah. So
they're up there as well. Yeah, good club.
That crest is based off the down crest, I think, right?
Yeah, it's very, very similar. Well, we'll take it anyway.
Oh, yeah, we will.
That'd be the normal for us down boys. If something's there, we're taking it.
You take everything you get.
It was not nailed down.
Connor, I was feeling very alone here for a while, but thanks for coming on. These 2 boys, they're too much.
The Nordies. Sorry.
where are you from yourself, Rob?
Lucan, just west side of Dublin there, yeah.
Oh, Next. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's what.
Should we just start it all again? We talked about Connor. We were going to get you a little like a cartoon on the side. So he was here in spirit, But yeah, let's talk about some of the Midwest teams. Myself and Connor would be familiar on the Saturday of North Americans. We played St. Pat's, Cleveland. Great club and great bunch of lads. Actually a good time chatting to them as well. But let's talk about maybe some of the successful clubs from there, maybe what they're doing right and how they've grown over the years. A little bit about that. Yeah,
look, obviously you mentioned Cleveland, St. Pat's. So they've become Cleveland, St. Jarlath, St. Pat's. Both clubs merge, and they would be kind of legacy clubs, right? They've been around for a long, long time. So it was great to see they were able to kind of work together and come on board as the one unit. They've done particularly well because they have all 4 codes, and they also have the youth and adult game as well. So that's a kind of another model club that's really trying to cater for anybody that comes along to them. You've got Detroit. You mentioned them a moment ago. They've got a fantastic youth program up there. A guy called Gareth O'Donoghue is doing tremendous work, and their senior team or their adult team are now seeing the kind of fruits of that youth program with those players coming across. You have up in Buffalo, you have two teams. You have the Fenians there and the Fianna, like your jersey. Again, catering for football, hurling, ladies football. You've clubs that are well up into New York as well that are doing great. Maybe some of them with somewhat more limited resources. So your Albanese, your Syracuses, your Rochesters as well. Albany themselves would be fairly geographically remote compared to the rest of the clubs. Our Banshees here in Pittsburgh, champions this year at a Junior B at the finals. So we were of course delighted with that. They did really well, and now we'll have to move up to Junior A next year. So they're currently kind of getting ready for that. We've had our Pittsburgh Pukas, our hurling team here, and they've won a North American as well. They've done very well. We added Nalekra Camogie this year, which is great. And John mentioned it earlier on. Like Camogie is really one of those codes that has really come on. There's some excellent leadership here. We've code development committees for all four of our codes, and the Camogie one are really doing a great job and a kind of a smart job and reaching out to, let's say, a hurling club and saying, do you have any ladies that would like to join? And with the Pukas, we kind of had we'd one lady here in Pittsburgh for years, and she was the Camogie team, and we used to kind of joke about it. She moved away, and suddenly they had a Camogie team. The irony once Susan moved up to Harrisburg. So it was great to see Camogie here in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh had a Camogie team going back into the 80s. So I know that some of those ladies that used to play were thrilled when they came back as well. So that's kind of a smattering of our teams. We've Cincinnati. They do a great job down there. That's about 5 hours from us. And we've Akron, who hurled are about an hour and a half up the road. I hope I've mentioned all the Midwest clubs.
I think you got every. It's interesting too. Like, I mean, we were able to bring 3 national cups home to the division this year. You know, with Cleveland ladies winning the Junior C, the Pittsburgh ladies football winning the Junior B, and then we had the hurling cup won at the Junior C level. Like, I mean, it's also interesting to note there we have a University of Pittsburgh team here. You know, they're playing the collegiate GA, and they've won the national title 3 years in a row, which is really interesting. So they go back now and they play in, I think it's in Kentucky, or is it Nashville in a week or so, and they're going to be looking to take home that cup for a 4th time, which is unreal. I mean, whenever you figure like you have, you know, big universities there like Purdue and Notre Dame and what you would really sort of identify as a lot of Irish, you know. So
UConn as well, I think, have a program as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Because did you host that? I think you hosted that collegiate up there, or was it Hartford hosted?
Hartford, I think. So they're very close with the UConn ones there. I know. I forget Rory's last name. Rory McGloin.
Rory McGloin, great lad. Yeah, I know him well. Yeah, he's 100%.
Brilliant lad.
Just curious, how did they start the college team? Did you have an involvement in that, or?
So my wife's actually she's an Irish language and cultural teacher at the university, and she's the advisor now. She didn't do any starting, but they needed to have an advisor in order to get it rocking and rolling. And somebody had come into the university, met with her. She was able to, you know, sign on as the advisor, help them get the dome and all of that stuff, you know, the practice fields. They just blossomed out of nowhere, like, you know. And not only blossomed, but actually became really, really good at the sport, and also became sort of a bit of a feeder system for the Pittsburgh Pukas, you know, the hurling team here that competes in the USGAA, you know.
So how, like, Rob talked a little earlier about, you know, I think it was Detroit, about their youth program having like a really strong, like, how important is that, you know, for, you know, these senior clubs and, you know, the success of these senior clubs? Because, you know, Boston do a really good job with, you know, getting those clubs in. I know they have Tierney, I think they've St. Brenton's, and they have another couple.
That's why.
How important is that?
Milton,
how important is that, you know, as far as like, because that's the next generation, and there's not a lot of Irish people coming over as they used to in the 90s and the 2000s, where a bunch of Irish lads and they would just feed off that. It's not the same anymore.
Yeah, Well, obviously, you're right. We're not kind of coming over in droves anymore. What we're seeing is, some of the lads on the team or ladies in the team are, starting their children and they're coming along like that. And it's fantastic to be able to see that. John just mentioned he'd love to take the field this year with his son, and being able to encourage that to happen is really great to see. I mean, the old adage of Molyneux agus Chucky Sheed, if you praise the young, if you bring them along, they're going to fly it. It's very important that we do that. Like I say, our club could do a better job of it here, and it's something that we definitely have to address. Some of the other clubs in our division have done a better job. Buffalo, Na Fianna grew out of a Buffalo youth team, and when they kind of came to the adult situation, they were faced with either joining a team of established players, and there were a lot of them, or starting their own team. So maybe somewhat controversial, they did decide to start their own actual club then, so that they weren't kind of that many kids about to start competing with the adults, and they've gone from strength to strength. That's certainly been one model that's worked within our division anyway. Yeah,
and if you look into like clubs across the country, right, there are, like, for example, like Trinity Milton there, like, and you're seeing up in the Northeast, like the clubs that are starting out as youth that have been around for a while, that are evolving now to where they've been around for, that 15, 20 years, are actually coming on, they're starting their own adult clubs. Listen, the perfect example of it is the Delco Gaels, right? That's the flagship for how to run a youth program and to go into an adult club and be very, very successful with very little Irish people, Irish born on the field, but to play like they were born and bred in Ireland. Do you know what I mean? So, like I said, the evidence and the data is there. That's the way forward,
Sean Oakes up in Boston is obviously another great example of it as well.
Men's,
yeah.
I mean, you were playing against them now,
Sean Oakes we play against, and we actually had a cracking final against Trinity in the Junior C division last at the end of last summer. There was probably, so we've the main field in Boston, and then you've got the backfield. It was probably the most attended backfield game I think that field has ever seen. It was just end to end at the end, and went into extra time, and just it was brilliant. What a game! And it's a credit to the boys there with Trinity. Rory O'Donnell, a couple of lads there, and a lot of the father and son combinations playing on the day. It's fantastic to see, and we've built a great relationship with them lads. We do the. We continue that into the fall as well, and we do the Greg Hawes tournament. We have ourselves, Sean Oakes, kind of keep it like the Junior C, Hartford and Trinity all involved with it. So, they're definitely, they are the benchmark. You're right.
Yeah.
Those clubs are where we should be going to for advice, and yourselves as well. Obviously, yourselves who's been there and seen it. When you guys are talking about, your division, what is the big events that go on in the Midwest, as far as like tournaments and championships, both, football, hurling, camogie, and all the divisions?
Yeah, so I suppose our season will probably start with the Cleveland Seven-a-side, and that's been something that we're delighted that they resurrected it. It had gone away for a couple of years, and it's a nice way just to get our teams together early in the year. Maybe not all your players are around you yet, so you're able to submit maybe 10 folks and get that going. And then we go right the way through to the Al O'Leary hurling tournament in early October. They would probably be the kind of two bookends to our season. One of the big things we're trying to push out here in USGAA is elongating the season, right? So that it's not just a June, July, August kind of thing, but that there are tournaments that are happening a lot earlier. Obviously in our division, I mentioned it earlier, it's a little colder no more than yourselves, right? So there's only so much you can do outdoors, but once the outdoor hits, we're ready to kind of go. You find it across the county that this is becoming a 12-month season now rather than the traditional old summer model.
Yeah, and like the other thing too, we're working on with our development committee here at the minute in the Midwest is we're going to run a camogie tournament in October as well. Listen, my thought process personally was always, hey, once USGA finals were over, that was it. It was done. I'm going to go into hibernation here for a while. But the interest from these people who are newer involved in the GA, they don't want it to end. Like, they can't get enough of it. And whenever I had our development team reaching out to like other divisions and stuff to see the interest, I was like, there'll be no interest in October. They're like, oh yeah, all the clubs will be happy to come in October. So like I said, being proven wrong in this is great, like, you know what I mean? Because it's just showing that more and more people want to be a part of it and just want it to last longer. Like, they want to get every last little bit of the warm weather in the games, like,
Oh,
yeah, no, I think that's huge for especially for local like American players and all that, to really get everything out of the season there, because it's hard to really develop a player, in fairness, if you only really have them for a few months of the year.
Yeah, and Connor, like, it shows like we don't know everything, like, you know what I mean? Like, so our way is not the only way, like, like we need to listen to these people that are coming new into our association here, and we need to provide for them, for their needs, like, So like I said, you can't be stuck in your thought process and be like, oh, this is the way, like, you know what I mean? That's not necessarily correct. Like, we need to continue to evolve here to take care of all of our members, like,
Well, that's a great point. Myself and Connor are well used. I mean, we're both here since, I'm here 2011, Connor's around the same time. We would have both played in the same kind of generation where season started the day after Paddy's Day, and August 15th, it's over.
It's over.
Yeah. And that's it.
100%.
And that's, and that is catering to, and there's nothing that, that's just how it was, and it's no fault of anybody. But when the lads went home, that's it.
Yeah.
You went and played your outdoor soccer or indoor soccer or whatever. But, if we are really, truly trying to grow this as, not just an Irish-born, it's everybody. You have to almost have that longer, earlier season to get them the opportunity, to get them the game time, because it is tough.
And like with the climate in the US too, like, there's so many opportunities to do the different things in different parts of the country where you're not used to doing stuff at that time of the year,
I think one of the other things that's been fantastic for that is the level of support that we're getting from Ireland. The Department of Foreign Affairs with their Global Games Development Fund grant is massive. Clubs that maybe didn't have money for kind of special projects in the early spring or late winter, early spring or late into the fall, they're now able to apply for funding, and they're able to apply for some indoor training and indoor practices and keep the thing going. And that's really been a godsend. So that's been fantastic over the last 5 or 6 years to be receiving that Global Games Development Fund.
So, Rob, from our conversation last week with Bernie, we actually, Bernie actually had a lot of praise for yourself, with what you're doing as far as development and stuff. Can you talk us a little bit more about that, about that role in development, and, is that specifically for football, or is that in all codes, and we can kind of add on to more questions on how do people can reach out to you as well,
Sure.
for resources. Yeah. So you want to touch a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So Liam Hegarty, who was a great Gael from based in Philadelphia and one of the guys behind starting the Delco Gaels club down there, he asked me in, I think it was 2016, would I come on board as the Games Development Officer for the county. I had no idea what the Games Development Officer was all about, and it was real kind of baptism by fire. But it's become a great role in terms of trying to support not only new and up-and-coming teams, but also teams that are maybe legacy. Sometimes we might forget about them. We think, they've got plenty of members, they're going great, but sometimes we do need to check in with them as well. The development role would oversee our games development administrators. That's our paid staff in Chicago, in Western San Francisco, obviously up with yourselves, and then in Philadelphia. So that's how those 4 divisions would largely be looked after with paid staff. And then the other 6 divisions around the county are able to access a number of other grants that come through kind of a marriage of funds between, or matched funds between, Croke Park and Department of Foreign Affairs as well. The big one at the moment, we're waiting any day for the Global Games Development Fund announcement that could support over 30 projects with 30 clubs around the county. The funding that we get from Croke Park, the DFA, and of course our twinning partner Munster, who are absolutely fantastic in this whole process, is able to help fund new clubs when they start, is able to fund new teams and give them a grant, give camogie or hurling matching grants. So there's a wide array of kind of financial opportunities for folks if they do want to get involved in our sport. If they want to, maybe they're a hurling team that would like to add a camogie team, maybe they're football that would like to start their ladies football, etc. So we've a great team within games development. We had a fantastic meeting actually in December where Pat O'Shea and Joey Carton from Munster, who's our twinning partner, came out to Chicago, and we brought in our games development administrators, and we also brought in the heads of our co-development committees, hurling, football, ladies, football, camogie. And we had a planning meeting for the year, and it was fantastic to see everybody around that table, kind of everybody knowing their roles, everybody knowing, who are the players within development within the county. There's no point in us working against each other. We need to know where the opportunities are, and if there is a camogie event, maybe hurling can dovetail, maybe ladies football can dovetail in with the ladies that are playing camogie. So that was a really, really good meeting. I think it might have been the first time that we kind of really got development all on the one page here in USGAA. Those committees hit the ground running in January, and we're seeing a lot of activity already this year, and it's still only early in the year. We're going to have some coaching seminars. Munster are going to send out some folks around to some of the divisions. We'll have coaching weekends. The Midwest have ours 13th, 14th of April, I believe. So we have two folks coming out from County Clare to coach football and ladies football and hurling and camogie. And we folks going into the Heartland division up in Milwaukee, and also Denver in our Southeast division. So there's massive appetite for growth. There's massive appetite for development funds, and clubs and teams are telling us the whole time, help us. I love this. I'm probably talking too much about it, but
no, it's great because we, everybody in our club's sick of hearing my voice, and and it's like, I mean, we try to mix it up, as much as possible. And it's tough, because you want to mix it up. You want to have different, drills and a different voice, and we have the resources, but we don't know where to go.
Right.
And that seems to be an ongoing conversation on topic. And it's like, we'd love to get, we'd love to have like training drills more at our fingertips, or, but we just don't know where to go. And hopefully this could be a great platform where, people will have the opportunity now to say, right, well, I know I can go to the USGAA page and go under resources and get the information that I need. That's going to help not just, me personally as a coach, as a trainer, but as you grow as a club, because you want to make sure that the people you do bring in, you're giving them the tools that they need to be successful. Because if you're not providing them with the proper training, in my opinion, that's, you can teach them how to run all day. But
I think you're right, Gareth. And I think the other aspect of it is, it's not all about finances, right? It's great that these funds are available, and we're so pleased that Croke Park, the Department of Foreign Affairs, and obviously our own internal structures are able to generate the funds. But there's a massive amount of information out there as well. You've got the learning.gaa.ie website is fantastic. I mean, you can drill right down to a beginner, intermediate, and advanced drill for any one of our skills across any of our various codes. Munster, again, who's our twinning partner, they have a website as well where they've got coaching and games information. And, of course, our own website, usgaa.org, as well, has got that and links to the various other entities. And it's great because a lot of our clubs, and particularly the newest club, the player who becomes the coach is maybe the most senior player. He might be the player who just can't run anymore. And it's to get them the skilling. Like, we do have our formal coach tutoring, right? So we have our introduction to coaching Gaelic games. We have our award 1. That's fine, right? It's nice to get that piece of paper. But there's nothing like those practical drills. Like if I'm going down to training on Tuesday night, what am I going to do with 20 lads or 20 ladies in front of me? It's very difficult. The resources are out there. You can print off your lesson plan for the evening. You can show up and you can just about get by. It's great. It's saved me on a few occasions, and John, I'm sure it saved you yourself too. But yeah, there's fantastic resources out there, videos, pamphlets, lesson plans you can print off. So we're very lucky. The GAA have put a lot of work into education. Obviously, we have the World GAA, and we meet them regularly. If we're back at Congress, or there's a lot of work groups that happen. And I know that the feedback is always really, really positive about those learning resources that are out there for us all.
No, there's definitely a lot of resources out there. And, I think, we'll make sure we post your contact information too, Rob, just so if any new clubs or, let's just say you're looking to get into the coaching aspect of it and, you maybe want somebody to point in the right direction.
Yeah.
We'll get them on to you. But, walk us through. So if somebody, you just talked about earlier about how you have so many American lads there that come in, new lads. Walk us through like a typical, an introduction session. What would your typical introduction for a new American-born player that walks in that's never heard of Gaelic football? That's just you're coming in. How would that session go to get them kind of involved?
I'll throw that one over to John. He's the coach.
I would take on a lot of that stuff, right? So I make sure there's a ball to a pair of people, right? There's nothing worse than seeing people standing around without a ball in their hands or getting multiple touches. And I think they say you want to have somebody have 300 touches in a training, right? So if that's hand pass, whatever, it's a lot of touching, right? So bring them in, straight in, do a bit of a warm up, do some plyometrics, get them ready, loosened up. Go straight into a bit of a hand passing drill. So you can't be afraid to fail, right? So you can't be trying to start off at the infant level and bring them up. I have no problem putting people right into an easy hand passing drill, easy soloing drill, solo the hand pass, the high ball drills, and then put them into a game, right? So this might all happen over the course of 2 hours. But what I would do there is whenever I'm out there and I'm coaching the game, or if you want to call it refereeing, the game that there's new players, and you don't want to stop the game every minute. You just want to talk to them as they're playing, right? So whenever they throw the ball, you're like, oh, that should have been a hand pass, and just keep going and going with them. They'll get it because you have them mixed with skillful players, and those people will teach them as well. So to take that old step where you used to have people standing around and watch skillful players, that's not the way forward. The way forward is get them stuck in, get a ball in their hand, and talk them through what they're doing. It's okay to make errors,
First attempt and learning, fail. That's like the old. That's as true as it comes. It's first attempt at learning. That's what it comes down to.
It's a staggering statistic, really. I think, John, you and I, when we first heard that number of 300 touches per person per evening session, we were blown away, because if you think about you go straight into your 7-a-side game or whatever, the stronger players are always going to emerge, and some of those weaker players just do not get those touches. And if you can have that kind of statistic in the back of your mind, okay, we have to get these weaker players touches. It's very, very important. But I know I was blown away when that was pointed out. It's the most natural thing in the world. How do you get people better? Give them touches.
Right. And it's actually, once you have drills that get you a lot of touches, it's actually not that hard to hit 300 in a training,
That's actually a good point. That's the first time I've ever actually heard that.
Yeah,
and it makes a lot of sense.
Like Robbie said there, right? If you go right into a game, right, a lot of the newer players that don't have the skills are going to be standing watching the game. So you want to have a lot of the drills where there's fast and high energy, a lot of touches, and then they get in the game and you try to help them during the game, to get stuck in and get a touch of the ball. And listen, what the first thing they're going to do whenever they get it? They're going to throw the ball. That's all right, no problem. There's no need to stop the game. We know where we're at, and you just let them know, hey, the next time, try to make that a hand pass, move on. And the next time they'll throw it again, and maybe by the third time they'll start to actually think, hand pass, And you have to remember, people who didn't grow up with the game like we did, you have to be very flexible in your your energy and maybe annoyance at them not getting it right the first time,
patience.
Not one of my virtues, like, you know.
I could just imagine John the sideline. Jesus Christ! If you throw that ball one more time, I'm going to throw you.
I have to buy a lot of pints after training. You know, sorry.
The coach screaming and yelling at you.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to listen to that, and I get it. That's just how it was before, like, you know. But nobody's going to want to come back to that. It's at the end of the day, it's about having a bit of crack. We talked about it before. It's 65% crack.
Right.
You know what I mean? The rest of it's the ball and having the good time.
Yeah.
You know, like we try to make our sessions as enjoyable as possible. You know, like, yeah, we'll do a bit of running. We'll make sure everybody gets a workout in, but we'll make sure that everybody's touching the ball. Every drill has like a skill. Yes, there might be fitness aspect to it, but it includes the ball as well. So those new people are getting used to the, you know, might be a shorter to a longer run, but you're making sure that has the solo implemented into it, and they're going to drop it a few times, and that's fine. But get up, pick it up, and keep going. You know, so
like a lot of things out there too, Gareth. Right, like whenever we're out training, like I'm doing fitness training, but they think they're playing football because I roll the ball out in front of them, like, you know what I mean, but they don't realize they're sprinting after the ball. So we're actually, as long as there's the ball, people chase it, like, you know.
Yeah, and it takes like when you think about going for a 5-mile run or something, you're like, oh Jesus, like a nightmare. But you're out there for an hour running around chasing the ball, and you look at your watch and think, how much did I run? I ran 5 miles, like, and you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
So,
The funny thing about, you know, speaking about that, one of the most underserved or underpurchased piece of equipment, I think, in football is the football. There aren't enough teams that have enough balls to actually play with, and you know, like John said, having a ball at least for every 2. I mean, you see so much. I know back in the day, like, we had 4 or 5 balls. There'd be complaints, although I think Cleveland stole one of ours. You know, we'd be down to 3 on the bus home. We didn't care; it was full of beer. But you get back and you have 3 balls the next week. It's like when you start learning and you start learning coaching and you start opening your eyes to just how this thing can go so much differently by kind of simple things like watching how many touches a player is having enough equipment, and buying those footballs. You know, it makes so much sense. Sometimes you have to stop.
Everybody likes to keep that out football nice and white and clean. You know what I mean? You wouldn't want to bring that out too early in the season, like, you know. But like Robbie said, you get it out there. Look, you have to invest in your footballs. They are expensive, but you know what? It's pointless doing what we do if you don't use your resources, like, you know.
And you know, for a lot of clubs, like, you know, if you know, yes, your Gaelic footballs are expensive, but if you needed to go get a couple of soccer balls, whatever, just to have something, right? You know, just so you're getting the fundamentals down off, you know, might be just the fist pass, might be like the short kick, the long kick, might be using, like, you know, kind of like the, you know, the handball courts, you know, just to kick a ball. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, like, I know most lads would probably lose the head and the shoulders, but at the end of a game, the whole team is around searching for those Gaelic balls because you do not want to lose one of them. So, like, even a club at home, like, you would watch the other team walking off the field and it's like, is that one of our balls?
It's like, you might lose the game, but if you can at least be up in your number of balls, you know, it's something.
We lost the game, but we come home with 2 extra balls. We lost the battle, but we won the war.
Exactly. Yeah. Very true.
So how's Gaelic football looking forward? Look for you lads, you know. So how do you both see your involvement in Gaelic football? You know, both in the short term and the long term. You know, John, you talk about lacing up the boots again. You know, they're probably the old Diadoras with cobwebs on them.
With the odd green stripe on them somewhere, like, you know.
So, listen, what does that look like for both of you now coming into the future?
I mean, listen, there's always the want to play. Like, I mean, you have to be realistic, like I said. But the good thing with the GAA is, like, it provides a place for every skill level, right? So the fella who is, you know, touching 50, that really can't run much. Now, that's not me, right? But like that fella who's touching 50, can't run much. There is a place for them to be, like, you know what I mean? Whether it's hurling, football, ladies football, camogie, whatever. There's different levels being introduced at the county level so that everybody can be part of the game. So yeah, I intend to kick a ball this year, like, you know.
Yeah.
I think for me it's a little bit like that line from The Godfather. Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Right? It's very hard to walk away from this sport, and we'll maybe have another couple of years here on the Midwest board. We'll go straight back to our club, and help the club board again. I think it's kind of a circle, and we just continue trying to help our clubs grow, right? Trying to help the county grow. That's what we're in this for, right? And we have to. I suppose when you first go on your club board, you should always be aspiring to get to that next level to help that next level grow. So when we started with the Pittsburgh Celtics, as they were then, and on that board, you're looking at the division, you're kind of, wow, it seems all very mysterious, but you're like, no, I think I'd like to get there. And then you move into the secretary or chair position, and it's nice to do that. I think, when you have drive like that, and you can see the opportunities and you're thinking outside the box a little bit, I think there's so many opportunities here in our club, in our division, and across the county as well. So there's definitely a place in this for both of us for quite a while.
Yeah, like if you want to work, somebody find you a job. Like there's no doubt about that.
Well, I know Bernie's on his last year, so maybe a couple of positions opening up now at the end of the year.
You couldn't replace Bernie.
Yeah, Bernie's a tough one to replace. I mean, the episode we had with him last week, that man is a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
He knows the ins and outs. Plays it. He's invested in he's in the right mindset. He's in the right. He wants it to go. He doesn't play politics. He plays it down the middle, which is as what you want in your leader, right? That's who you want. But leading us in the battle as we grow the USGAA. So, I mean, he's done a great job. Look at the growth of the USGAA since he's been in. Vice chair 5 years, now 5 years as the president. Almost doubled in clubs within that time period. So a real testament to him. But they're with maybe a new voice could be in. That can add on to that as well. I think will be very important. What's your thoughts on that, lads?
Listen,
Go on, John.
Yeah, listen, Bernie, we can't say enough about him, right? The knowledge that he brings, that he set the standard high, like for the next person. The growth the county's had in his. He's been on the county board for 10 years, but his 5 years as the boss at the helm, he steered the ship in the right direction. The numbers show that. Listen, I've been on the county board. I've run for the county board. I always aspire to be at the next level of where I am. I think where things are at the minute, satisfied with the Midwest, and working for the clubs at home. We'll worry about where the next step is at the end of the year.
Is that a possible John Young?
So here's the thing about me. I'm never afraid of a challenge. You know what I mean? I enjoy challenges, I enjoy administering the game, and they said we'll see where she goes later on in the year.
I think the GA was around long before we came along. It's going to be around long after we're gone. We have to leave a good legacy. We're the keepers of the flame right now, right? And we have to make sure that for John's sons, my nephews, that this game is here at the adult level for them. Okay, we can do some work with them here at youth, but we have to make sure that it's here for them once they make the transition across to adults. We have to make sure that our division is very strong, and that we still have all those clubs. It's great talking about the growth, but we need to make sure in 10 years when that young man becomes 18 and joins one of the adult teams that it's here for him. And that's probably the most important thing that any of us do every day.
Yeah, that's the highest objective of all of our jobs. Make sure that this game and this association is here for the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a great point. And maybe if you're looking into the short term next 5 years, what do you kind of see as the biggest opportunities that maybe untapped markets that we haven't really looked into, or maybe certain areas within youth or ladies or men's that, we could maybe not fix, but could be worked on that area?
Yeah, I think one of our biggest issues, right, is exposing the game to the people, right? Because like I said, once you bring somebody around once or twice, you have them hooked for life, So, look, there was a conversation over the years about TV rights and getting the game on TV more, which would inspire people to look for like the local clubs in their own cities and stuff. I think that's something that like would really, really help get people more involved in the USGAA. So if we can get the game to people that don't know about the game, because once they know about it, Gareth, Connor, like they're easy to bring in. They enjoy our association. They enjoy what we bring. So I think we have to figure out how to get our games on mainstream TV here in the US. You know.
Oh, I think on a Sunday morning here, if you had a championship game, honestly, like, you know, I think a great example of that is the World Cup was on a couple of months ago, and it was on a Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. Now, most people probably wouldn't have watched that game, but there was nothing really else on.
Right.
So most people tuned in, and actually, luckily, it was a phenomenal game. Went and, you know, you could see the passion, you know, grown men with tears in their eyes while Argentina win. I think people got a new appreciation of the game.
Yeah.
You know, I think having that, you know, on a Sunday morning, if you had a hurling game on or a championship Gaelic football game, people flicking through a channel and be like, geez, what the hell's this?
Right.
You know, and it's like, this is interesting. Like, I think there's definitely a market for that.
Yeah.
You know, obviously there's more behind the scenes, you know, that why it hasn't happened.
Of course. Yeah. And like, listen, like if for people like us that want to see the games, we know how to go find them, right? We can watch them, right? It's getting to the person that didn't know yet that they wanted to watch the game. Like, how do we get it to them? Listen, it may not be a live game. You know what I mean? It may be, you know, it's shown on a Tuesday. You know what I mean? For the games that happen on Sunday, where they don't have as much value anymore to rewatch for us who watched it live. Like, you know, but we could get it into the vision of people who haven't seen it before. I think that's going to be the key. I think the continued to crazy growth. Like, you know, but then like at the same time, like if we have crazy growth, we have to make sure we have the structure to support it, right? Because once you get them, you only get one opportunity to keep them, and we've been really good at that because of our slow growth. But if we explode, like we have to make sure we have the structure for it.
Yeah, the infrastructure has to be, you know, the foundation has to be solid, right?
And like the USGA has built a really good infrastructure over the last, you know, it's always been good, right? That's why we're part of it. But the where it's been going lately, like it's a much more professional environment on your county board level. You mean like your county board meets there like every Wednesday night. For the normal board, then they have development committee meetings. I mean, a county board member could be meeting 3 times a week. That we don't know all of this is happening behind the scenes. I mean, the amount of effort that our county board put in is it's unreal, and that's the reason that we are where we are today. Like, you know. Well,
lads, I think that's a good time to kind of start wrapping it up. I think we're an hour and a half in, like, you know, long. But no, just real quick, want to thank you both for coming on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Very informative. You know, Rob, I appreciate your insight, and John, obviously, too. You know, Bernie actually did mention, you know, how valuable you are to the development, you know, and I can definitely see with, you know, the knowledge you're bringing to the table that you could be a great resource to any clubs there who maybe are having that little bit of a struggle. And yourself, John, if anybody has questions, to reach out to both of you, because, you know, that's a division that's grown substantially, you know, and if you're looking at a division where you can target where this is where I want to be. This is where,
listen, guys, we're definitely proud of what's happening in the Midwest. Yeah. Like, I mean, and we're not. It excites you and invigorates you, right? It wants you to keep going, you know. And like I said, the people that have been there before us on the divisional board have done a hell of a job to put us into the foundation of where we are now. And like I said, it's exciting, right? Whenever like you hear these new clubs and you're having calls with people, you're having coaching weekends, and 50 plus people are driving from all over the division to be there. It's where we want to be. Like, and I said, we're quite happy to be serving the clubs in our division.
And keep up the great work, lads. And I'm sure this will be a goodbye for now, and we'll chat soon. So
I'll see you later.
We look forward to meeting you, maybe in Denver, right? Will you come out?
Well, we'll see. Yeah. Maybe we have. Maybe Connor just my wife is actually due in August, so
very good.
We'll see.
Right, Connor, that's a plan.
Baby number 2. So unless I want, you know, we have a nice doghouse in the back. You know, unless
that's your first time in it, Garrett.
You know, I might have to make it my home if I decide to go to Denver. But no, we'll see how that goes. But we'll definitely...
the best of success and all that with the podcast. Hopefully it takes off really well for you, and we appreciate you providing the service.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
You want to wrap it up?
Yeah. This has been the North American Gaelic Football Podcast. If you like this episode, please just remember to like and subscribe, leave a comment, and let us know what you think. And I just want to thank the boys, Rob and John, for giving their time. So.
All right, Slán, lads. I'll see you. All the best.
Cheers.